Hi, I'm Hannah Kommer.
And I'm Leeann Schmutz.
And we're current fourth-year architecture students at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, participating in a virtual study abroad program in Rome. Over the past 8 weeks, we have been learning about the city and its many celebrated features. We were particularly fascinated by Rome's connection to water and have chosen to take this opportunity to study the history, value, and impact of the Roman fountain.
Water has long been at the center of Roman life. From ancient times all the way through the 21st century, water has been flowing through Rome, cultivating and sustaining life in the city for thousands of years. Perhaps the most prominent and visible way water manifests itself in daily Roman life is through the presence of fountains. With more than 300 fountains scattered throughout the city, ranging from the unassuming Nasoni drinking fountains to Rome's most famous and celebrated, the Trevi, these water features have become defining characteristics of Roman life.
In this short video, we will be looking at the many fountains of Rome and the possibility of viably implementing this system elsewhere. We will begin with an overview of some history and an introduction to several of Rome's fountains while discussing their role in Roman society, and end with the question of implementing it in America.
Rome's connection with water is as old as the city itself. With the Tiber flowing its way through the heart of the city and the abundance of natural spring water in the nearby hills, the city is quite literally surrounded by it. Since ancient times, Romans have been designing and innovating infrastructure to best take advantage of this abundant natural resource. A notable example of this is the Cloaca Maxima. This seemingly unassuming drainage canal is actually often regarded as Rome's first monument, as well as the most cost-effective public works project in history, given that it's still in use to this day, even if only a trickle of water can be seen flowing from it into the Tiber. Perhaps Rome's most notable historical innovation, especially in regards to water, as well as the one that's most relevant to the topic of fountains, is the aqueduct. These incredible feats of engineering brought natural spring water into the city from the surrounding hills, where it was then stored in large cisterns and distributed via smaller pipes to public baths, fountains, and other potable water needs.
Now that we understand the significance of water in Roman society and how it was brought to the city, we will move on to giving a brief introduction on the many fountains scattered throughout Rome. First up is the Trevi Fountain. It was designed by Italian architect Nicola Salvi and completed by Giuseppe Panini and several others. Arguably the most famous, not only in Rome but also in the entire world, this fountain is one of the oldest water sources in the city. It uses so much water that it now has to be recycled, making it one of the only fountains in Rome you cannot drink from. This Baroque-style fountain is the largest in the city, standing at 26 meters high and 49 meters wide. Roughly 3,000 euros are thrown into the Trevi every day. As tradition says, if you throw a coin over your shoulder into the fountain, you will find yourself back in Rome again someday.
Next to the Fontana della Barcaccia. It is also a Baroque-style fountain and is located at the base of the Spanish Steps in Rome's Piazza di Spagna. It was built in 1623 by Pietro Bernini after Pope Urban VIII commissioned him as part of a project to erect a fountain in every major piazza in Rome. Sometimes, people are criticized for drinking or washing their hands in this fountain, as it is seen by some as disrespectful. However, others argue that doing these things is actually a way to honor the monument.
Here, starting with the view from within the building, we have the Fontana del Pantheon, which gets its name from its location in the Piazza della Rotonda in front of the Pantheon. It was designed in 1575 by Giacomo della Porta and sculpted out of marble by Leonardo Sormani. As you can see, the massive pillars of the architectural feat reveal themselves from behind the water.
Next, we have the Fontana dell'Acqua Palla. It is located near the Church of San Pietro in Montorio in Rome and was built in 1612 to mark the end of the Acqua Palla aqueduct, which gets its name from Pope Paul V.
Fountain from the late 16th century, the Borghese family.
All of the materials used to construct this fountain were actually scavenged from other ancient monuments. For example, stone and marble were taken from the Forum of Nerva, and granite columns were taken from St. Peter's Basilica.
Here we have the Fontana del Moro. This one is located in the Piazza Novana in Rome. Sculpted from rose-colored marble, it represents a Moor, or African, standing in a conch shell while wrestling with a dolphin and surrounded by 4 tritons.
The Fountain of the Porter, or Il Ficino, was created around 1580 and depicts an aquarolo, a man carrying a barrel. These men would take water from the Tiber to sell on the streets of Rome before the aqueducts were repaired and public fountains were running again.
Lastly, here we have the Fontana del Fuimi, located in the Piazza Navona and designed by Lorenzo Bernini for Pope Innocent X, whose family palace, the Palazzo Pamphili, faced into the piazza.
In addition to the large monumental fountains we just covered, it is also important to recognize the perhaps less attention-grabbing but equally important fountains that provide everyone in the city with access to fresh, clean drinking water every day. This Nasone is a type of drinking fountain found all over the city of Rome. Literally translated to large nose in English, they get their name from their characteristic design first introduced in the 1870s. They are also commonly referred to as fontanelles or little fountains.
The inscription SPQR seen on this drinking fountain represents the Roman Senate and the people.
In addition to being a primary water source in the city, culturally, fountains draw people in. Whether it is a group gathered around a Nasone waiting for a drink, people spending time outside by the Trevi on a beautiful day, or an organized group gathering in a piazza, such as the women's rights protest seen here, fountains attract people from all walks of life and bring them together.
After all this research into fountains, we started thinking, what would it look like if we tried to take the Roman model and implement it elsewhere, particularly here in America? Personally, we think that despite the obvious cultural and systematic differences in two places, it is still an interesting proposition. We wanted to get some different perspectives on this idea, so we conducted a couple interviews. First with an Italian student living just outside of Rome, and with an American student who studied abroad in Italy last year. We will conclude this video with what they had to say.
Public fountains were fundamental elements in the ancient Rome, with all the complex of aqueducts. 90% of Italian people today drink bottled water. You can divide it into two different types of users. The first type of user is the occasional drinker, who is the person that doesn't want to buy a bottle of water and needs to drink. And 90% of users are occasional drinkers. And in Rome, public fountains are engineered for this purpose. On the other side, there is the person who doesn't want to buy plastic bottles, or maybe he doesn't have drinkable water at home. So he goes to the fountain and takes water, which is perfectly legal in our country. In our country, fountains are linked to their historical and cultural background. I don't know what American people can think about public fountains, but surely if someday the USA will be crowded of public fountains, that will really change your way of thinking about the water and drinking it.
So I am Kelsey. I am a fourth year at Cal Poly. I studied abroad in Torino, Italy for 4 months last year. It wasn't like famous or anything, but it was like a cool fountain, and I would go to the park and like read or do homework and like stay on the grass by the fountain. Those I use all the time. They were awesome. I love them. Yeah, and they're always really cold, and they filtered my water fast.
Yeah.
The water was so much pressure. Highly recommend. I mean, we never had like any problems with it, and like they were always really nice to buy. But I think there could be more.
Okay.
Like I think we'd be at somewhere and we'd be like, oh, like we need just like a fountain, but they'd be like, no, so you have to like walk to one. And like really popular squares, they'd be crowded, and the locals, they just like literally would tilt their head and like drink from it. The Americans were the only ones that like had water bottles we filled up as we stayed there longer, which now just do what the locals did. It's like we all loved them, and they're so convenient, so much more cleaner to me. Like they're like a lot more fresh, and like I feel like I'm not putting my mouth on like gross like things that other people touch. Like I don't know. And then the water tastes so much better, and it's like so much colder. So honestly, yeah, like I feel like I never used drinking fountains in America, like ever.
Yeah.
But I use them all the time, like when I was in Europe.